I want to share with you all what it looks like to do the impossible, even when you don't see how it's possible to do, when you don't even recognize that current version of yourself. But God has called you to do something. I believe that every single person that's listening to this podcast episode today, I truly believe that there's something that God has placed in your heart to do, and you don't even know how it can be done because it's so far beyond the current version of yourself. You may not even have the financial resources to see how it can be done, or the facility, or the people in place for it to be done. But God has called you to do something. And for those of you who've been following me for a while, you probably already know what I'm referring to. We're going to talk about the recent Unlocking Greatness retreat that I just had. And many people have said to me, they said, Z, it should not have been called a retreat. It should have been called an Unlocking Greatness conference. Well, you all may not know, it was just a few weeks ago. And God placed on my heart, I was in the middle of prayer. And I woke up early in the morning. And the first thing he put on my heart was on June 13th, you're having your very first in-person Unlocking Greatness retreat. I said, God, that's less than 3 weeks away. How is that even possible that something like this can happen? That's less than 3 weeks away. You need a facility. You need people. You need all types of resources to bring something like that together. You need an agenda. You need speakers, like the whole thing. And I said, God, how is that possible? Now, what many of you all don't know, I was scheduled to have surgery the next week. Then after that, unfortunately, we found out about a death in the family. So we had a funeral, 2 funerals back to back. So can you imagine that? If you were able to watch the YouTube video, I want you all to watch this podcast on YouTube because I'm going to share some photos with you all. And I pray to God that this lights a fire in somebody who's been called to do something that seems so far beyond you at this point. God placed in my heart June 13th is when you're having this retreat. So can you imagine going from hotel to hotel trying to book a retreat, an event? Can you imagine talking to the people at the hotel, the event managers, and you saying to them that you're having a retreat on June 13th, and they're saying to you, oh, you're referring to next week, next year, and you're saying, no, it's this year. Can you imagine that? And then can you imagine hearing them say, all of the rooms are booked. People plan things like this almost a year in advance. And can you imagine them saying, well, how about you just have it the weekend before, or maybe 2 weeks later, or a couple months later? Because we're in the midst of graduation. There's lots of graduations. There's lots of weddings. Every hotel that we went to was literally telling us the exact same thing, that the hotels are booked, there's graduations. And so I remember going through all of this, going through all of the different hotels, and I even had a friend or two that was helping me. We couldn't find a single place. And finally, I remember when I thought that I found the place that I was going to utilize, and even in that situation happened, I won't go into detail, that we were not able to use it. And I never forget when my friend said to me, she says, how about we just get a list and divide it up? And she says, how about you just take half, of the list, I take half, and we just literally comb through every single hotel that we can find in the state of Illinois. Now, at this point, I was exhausted because I've been going around to so many different locations. And I said to her, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm not going to do that. She's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to go home and take my butt to sleep. I'm going to go take a nap. And the reason I did that, I knew that if God called me to do this and I've done everything that I know to do, God's going to make it very clear to me what needs to happen. So I'm going to just kind of fast forward a little bit because I want to show you all some testimonials and some videos and some pictures and things from the retreat. I took my butt home. I got myself in the bed and I laid down and took a nap. I kid you not. When I woke up, I will never forget, God placed in my heart. He said to me, remember the place where you had your mother's memorial service? I said, God, that was many, many, many years ago. He says, that is the hotel, not the exact hotel, but the hotel chain. That is the hotel where you're going to have this retreat. And I remember saying to him, I said, but God, I said, I was just in the heart of, it's called like the Rosemont Convention area for those who know Illinois, down by the O'Hare Airport. All of those hotels are all like grouped together, just so you know. I had already gone to the majority, like a ton of those hotels. All of them were booked out. And so one of the main hotels that everyone pretty much knows the name of, there was the one hotel I didn't walk into because all of the other ones across the street were already booked out. Now I'm going somewhere with this, but God told me that's where it's going to be. I got my butt up, I put my shoes on, and I went there. And I'll never forget when the lady was like, we're normally booked out. She says, these events, like you have to plan this in advance. I said, well, can you check June 13th? Can you check that date? And I'll never forget when she got back with me and she says, this is really interesting. We happens to have the ballroom available on that day. I kid you not. Now, I'm saying this to you all, and by now you probably should be seeing some pictures from the retreat, how absolutely amazing it came together. When I tell you that God brought a crew together that was out of this world, I had people saying, Z, I got you on this. I'll take care of helping out in this area. I'll take care of registration. I'll take care of this. I had somebody come and say, hey, you need me to sing? I'll be there to sing. Another person like, hey, so you need me to be there to take over the catering? I've got the catering. The way that God pulled that together was unbelievable. But that doesn't mean that the devil stopped. And I pray to God that this helps someone right now who's in the middle of planning something. Because even in that, in the very first week, can you imagine you only have about 3 or so weeks to promote or talk about a retreat? No ads ran, nothing, just all word of mouth. And I had surgery. I had minor outpatient surgery, and without going into detail about it, for about 10 minutes, they had to revive me. Very minor outpatient surgery. I found out later that I stopped breathing. And I won't even go into detail about it because I'm not going to give the devil any glory in it. So for a week after I had a minor outpatient surgery, I couldn't even talk. Anyone that knows me knows this is true. So can you imagine that? I literally could not even talk because my throat was so swollen and so sore and so bruised. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't talk longer than a couple seconds without having to take a swallow. My throat was literally, I couldn't do it. And then after that, going to 2 funerals. It is unbelievable what God did in that little bit of time. Not only did all of the room blocks get booked out, in fact, the hotel was completely booked out. So many people booked flights and came in from all around. The live streamers, people who joined the live stream, the sessions that we had, the guest speakers, which was, that's a whole nother subject. By now you should be seeing a picture or video of one or two of the guest speakers. One of them was Olivia. Olivia is absolutely amazing. She helped lead some of the day sessions. We also had some evening sessions that we did, the VIP Builders Roundtable sessions for entrepreneurs and leaders. We had a full podcast room built out. Many of you all know Val. Val is an amazing, amazing podcaster. She helped to build that room out and taught sessions on that. So we had content creation sessions, VIP Builders Roundtable. The way that came together, from the catering down to the fellowship to all of the different courses and sessions that we had, the feedback from people. In fact, I think I'm going to pause a moment to play a video from someone who attended. So you can watch this video and I'll come back.
I just wanted to thank my mentor and coach, business coach, Zenja Glass, for putting together the Unlocking Greatness Retreat, which I attended this weekend with a bunch of amazing women who are very similar to me in that they own multiple businesses, but a lot of times are not filled up themselves. Zenja has an amazing ability to really understand exactly where you need to go in your business to better serve your customers as well as not get burned out yourself. And I just loved everything that she had to say, as well as her speakers. I definitely feel inspired from my app, my podcast, as well as my in-person business. The gift bags, the food, the rooms, the decorations, the schedule itself, everything was just so wonderful. I feel very inspired and refreshed going forward in the week ahead. And having been a member of her community as well as her inner circle for about 6 months, I can definitely tell you it is all worth it. So thank you so much, Zenja. I really appreciate everything you did.
This retreat definitely felt like home. It was nice to be in a space where there's so many talented people who dream as big as you, right? And so the like-mindedness and the inspirations and just the presence of God and meeting you, just very powerful people. And I felt so privileged that God allowed me to be present in that space. And so I see the value and the gift in that. And I'm so grateful. So I can't wait for the next retreat. Sign me up. I think we should do them quarterly, but
Oh my gosh, you sound like some of the other women that were there, Lisa. They were saying, Z, when is the next one? Are we having one this fall? I said, let me get past this one, Jesus.
I know.
Lisa, I hope you know none of that was planned. Like literally, I kid you not. I'm not making it up when
it
God
was beautiful.
me up and said June 13th you're having. I said, God, I didn't even know June 13th was going to fall on a Saturday. Keep that in mind. I said, whatever day it falls on, God, even if it's just you and I there, I'm doing it. So the way that it all came together was just so beautiful. But I just loved it. I loved every part of it. So
it was great. It felt natural, and just not being a part of the community, I felt like I knew everybody there for so long.
Oh yeah, you were like already a member as far as we were concerned.
I know. I just felt so okay, I have arrived, So it's just, thank you so much for putting that together. And I was able to meet such amazing people and connect with you, and I'm excited for the future.
If I have time in this clip, I'll make sure I play a few more. I say all this to say, because this is not a bragging thing that I'm doing right now. This is a giving God the glory moment. You all, sometimes God calls us to do the impossible, what may seem impossible to us. And we have absolutely no idea, how can this even come to be? It is literally impossible. The event manager at the hotel had a talk with me afterwards, and she's just like, this was really unbelievable what you all did. All the way down to the podcast room that you all built out and the way that this went. She's, a number of people said, you have no idea how amazing this was, how this was pulled together. God was doing an impossible moment in that moment in my life and in the lives of others. And I believe those who are listening to this message right now, this is the fire that you need. God is able to do the impossible in our lives. Now, I should right now be letting you all know God did it again. He spoke to me again. Even after the retreat, and you all know this, for the next 2 weeks, I could barely do anything. One, I was exhausted the next week, and the following week, I just wanted to be still and listen to God. And he's given me another date for this fall. I'll announce it at the proper time. He says, now you're doing it again, and this time it's going to be even bigger. I said, oh my goodness. Now here I am sitting in a restaurant coming off of the mountain from all that happened so quickly. It was a miracle the way that it worked out. And God then puts another date in my heart and says, here's the next date. And I says, oh my goodness. I was scared to even look at the calendar, you all. Because for me, I don't care if it falls on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, no matter what date, if God tells me this is when it's going to happen, just like he told me June 13th was going to be the retreat, I said to myself and I said to others, even if I should be the only one there, and if it's in the middle of the week, it's going to be on that date. And God just did it again and told me, now here's the next one. You all, I want to encourage you all, when God is calling you to move forward and he has given you something that may seem impossible, all you have to do is take the first step and begin to allow the provisions, the people, the help to fall into place. Very, very quickly, I'm going to read to you all one of my favorite passages in the book of Judges. And in the book of Judges, what I love about this is when Gideon was called to do something that seemed nearly impossible. I love when the angel said to him, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. That's in Gideon chapter 6, verse 12. And I love that Gideon said, but sir, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? And I love that Gideon goes on down in verse 15 saying, my clan is the weakest. He goes on to say, I'm the least in my family. And I love the Lord's response in verse 16. The Lord said, I just love this. I was reading it this morning. I will be with you. He basically just overlooked everything that Gideon was saying in terms of why it couldn't happen and said, go forward, I will be with you. And maybe, just maybe, my brothers and sisters, that's why you're listening to this podcast episode right now. If I had time, I would read to you from my book Necessary, but I'm going to refer a chapter. I want each of you all to make sure you read today. If you don't have the audio book, you go to unlockinggreatness.com and you listen to the audio book. I want you to listen to the chapter titled, If Greatness Could Speak. And that's chapter 20. And listen to the chapter 14 titled, I Won't Apologize for Going Higher. You don't owe anyone an apology for going higher. When God has called you to build, my brothers and sisters, it's time to build. And for many of you who are listening to this message right now, it's time to start doing the impossible, what God has called you to do in this season in your life. I love you all. For those of you who are looking for an amazing community to join, I welcome you to the Unlocking Greatness community. It is time to build. I just want to take a moment to thank my sponsor, Priscilla Van Zanten. She was one of the first sponsors to sponsor the Unlocking Greatness retreat. She is a real estate agent in the Chicagoland area, and we have honorary sponsors as well. If you want to learn more about those who have sponsored the retreat, go to unlockinggreatness.com and look up the sponsors that we have on there. I love you. I love you. I love you. I pray that you're greatly encouraged. To God be the glory. You're listening to Unlocking Greatness podcast with Zenja Glass. I love you all.